The most expensive AI systems your company just paid millions for are actually slower and dumber than a basic chatbot for 90% of real work. And I'm not exaggerating. Let me show you why, because this is the gap between the hype and what actually works. So here's the setup. Over the last year or so, everyone's been obsessed with AI agents. You know the pitch. Autonomous systems that think through problems, break tasks into steps, talk to tools, iterate, learn from feedback. It sounds incredible. It sounds like the future. Companies are building them, investors are funding them, and honestly, the demos look amazing. An agent sits there, reasoning through a problem, calling APIs, checking results, trying again if something fails. It feels like real intelligence at work. But here's what nobody talks about. That flexibility and autonomy come with a massive hidden cost. And I mean massive. Let me break down what's actually happening under the hood. When you give an AI agent a task, it doesn't just solve it straight. First, it has to think about what the task even is. Then it has to plan out steps. Then it has to decide which tools to use. Then it has to call those tools. Then it has to parse the results. Then it has to decide if it worked or if it needs to try something else. If it doesn't work, it has to reason about why and try again. Sometimes it tries multiple times. Each one of those steps is a separate API call, a separate inference pass, which means latency stacks on top of latency. We're talking hundreds of milliseconds to sometimes seconds just for the thinking overhead. Meanwhile, a simple tool, let's say a fine-tuned model or even just a prompt-based classifier, takes your input and gives you an output. One pass. Done. Milliseconds. No reasoning loops. No tool calling overhead. No retry logic. So let's get concrete with numbers, because this matters. I looked at some real benchmarks and case studies from companies actually deploying this stuff. A basic customer service chatbot, just a model that's been trained to route tickets or answer FAQs, handles 50 to 100 requests per second on a single GPU. An AI agent system doing the same task? More like 2 to 5 requests per second, sometimes worse. That's a 10 to 50 times slowdown. And that's not because the agent is smarter. It's because it's doing way more computational work per request. Or look at it another way. Latency. A simple lookup or classification takes maybe 100 to 200 milliseconds end to end. An agent trying to solve the same problem might take 2 to 5 seconds, sometimes longer if it has to iterate. For a user sitting there waiting, that's the difference between instant and noticeably slow. That difference kills user experience. People leave. They get frustrated. They go somewhere else. And here's the thing that really gets me. In a ton of real-world scenarios, you don't actually need an agent. You don't need reasoning and tool calling and iteration. You need a decision, a route, a classification, a retrieval. The problem is already well-defined. The solution is predictable. An agent is like hiring a consultant to tell you whether to turn left or right when you just need a street sign. So why are companies building agents if they're slower and often overkill? A few reasons. 1. The demos look cool and the narrative is compelling. 2. Agents feel future-proof. If the task is vague or novel, an agent might handle it better than a static tool. 3. Sometimes people just don't know the difference yet. And 4. There are genuinely some tasks where agent behavior is worth the cost. If you're doing complex research or debugging or multi-step reasoning where the path isn't obvious, an agent can be the right call. But most of the time, you're paying for flexibility you don't need, and you're getting slowness and unreliability in return. Here's the real insight. The best AI systems right now are hybrid. They use simple, fast tools for the 90% of cases where the problem is clear and the solution is deterministic. And they only pull in agent-style reasoning for the 10% of cases where things are actually ambiguous or complex. That's how you get both speed and capability. So the next time someone pitches you an AI agent as the solution to everything, ask them, what's the latency? How many API calls per request? What's the fallback if the agent gets confused? Because I guarantee you, if they're being honest, you'll find that a simpler system would have solved the problem faster and more reliably. The future of AI isn't agents doing everything. It's smarter routing. It's knowing when to use a sledgehammer and when to use a screwdriver. And right now, most teams are swinging sledgehammers at nails. If you want to actually keep up with this stuff, the real trade-offs, not the hype, subscribe. I break down these gaps between what people say about AI and what actually works in production, and honestly, that's where the real insight is. Thanks for watching.